If you've ever heard the phrase one watch guy, you're probably not one. I know I'm not, but today we're looking at a watch that nearly made one out of me. I'm Griffin, a contributor at Worn & Wound, and this is the Vertex M60 Aqualion ND, a modern dive watch that pulls from a deep history while standing on its own as one of the best wearing, best looking dive watches I've ever come across. Let's take a closer look. First impressions. On paper, the M60 Aqualion is pretty straightforward. It follows the classic black dial, black bezel, no date formula for a dive watch to a T. But the moment you get it in hand, you start to see how well thought out every detail is. Vertex has built a watch that feels like a true daily driver while still being utterly capable and subtly extreme. This wasn't a watch I expected to fall for. I've always had a real affection for dive watches, but I've never found myself particularly attracted to the classic black and steel dive watch recipe. That said, I tend to think of collecting as being an exercise in evolving taste. And as soon as I got this watch last summer, after first seeing it at Wind Up the fall before, it quickly made me rethink what I wanted out of an everyday diver. Before we get into anything else, let's break down the specs though. The M60 Aqualion ND has a 40mm stainless steel case, is just under 13.9mm thick, and has a lug-to-lug of 49mm. It's water resistant to a totally unnecessary but welcome 600 meters, and is powered by a COSC-certified no-date Sellita SW300-1 movement, which on my example keeps time well within COSC limits, if not better. There is a date option available for those who want it, but I think the no date is the way to go. Mercifully, there's no phantom date position on the crown, and the heavily knurled crown itself is a joy to use and gives the Aqualion a real big crown old school dive watch look. And then there's the bezel. This is absolutely one of the best parts of the watch. It's a 60-click bezel with a fully loomed insert and a knurling pattern inspired by the rear sight adjuster of a World War II era British Bren machine gun. The action is crisp, satisfying, and practical. Basically, it's the kind of bezel that actively encourages you to use it, and it's very much become my benchmark for bezel action across all dive watches. But for as good as the bezel is, it's hard to talk about the Aqualion without talking about Lume. Lume is really the Aqualion's killer feature, and it's a torch on the wrist. I've never owned a watch that glows so intensely or for as long as this one, and it's genuinely spoiling. Particularly cool are the three-dimensional markers and numerals, which are carved from solid blocks of X1 grade superluminova. This is a technique we're starting to see spread around, but Vertex did it first, and it really helps the watch feel modern, despite the generally straightforward look of it. But if Lume is where the Aqualion shines literally, wearability is where the Aqualion shines figuratively. It wears exactly how you would want a dive watch to wear, or at least exactly how I want a dive watch like this to wear. It's substantial, but balanced well and comfortable. The 40mm size keeps it compact, but its slightly extended bezel, which I measured at about 41.5mm, and its general architecture give it some extra wrist presence that's really appreciated. My favorite way to wear the Aqualion is on its rubber strap, which it's on now. But Vertex does include three options with the watch: the black rubber strap, a stainless steel bracelet, which I have here, and a navy blue nylon pass-through strap. The bracelet is rock solid, but for my money, the rubber strap is the way to go. It's comfortable, it's durable, and it just suits the overall vibe of the watch perfectly. In the year and a half I've owned the Aqualion, I've only ever taken it off the rubber strap 4 or maybe 5 times, and never for more than a few hours. That said, if you do want to change straps, the inside of the lugs are where you'll find one of Vertex's best design details: dual mounting holes for the spring bars. Ignoring obvious cost and complexity issues, I honestly don't know why more watches don't have these. Having the extra set of mounting holes for your spring bar is kind of a game changer. It gives you more flexibility in how the watch sits on your wrists and lets you adapt the watch to different kinds of straps. I found that I like using the higher, tighter mounting point for two-piece straps and the lower mounting position for pass-through straps like NATOs and Zulus. I think we can all agree that on any watch, but especially one that costs the better part of $3,000, the small things matter, and Vertex nails these details. But the real magic of the M60 Aqualion isn't any one thing, it's how everything works together. There are elements here that remind you of classic dive watches, nods to the Submariner, the Seamaster, but it never feels derivative. Instead, it feels like an evolution, a distillation of over half a century of dive watch history all rolled into one great watch. I've owned the Vertex M60 Aqualion ND for about a year and a half, and I'm not exaggerating when I say it has completely changed how I collect watches. The Vertex has become what I call my home base watch. What does that mean? Well, it's the watch I wear the most, certainly. Unless I have something new in for review, it's on my wrist probably 2 out of every 3 days. It's my default, my go-to, the watch I reach for when I just need something that works. And it's changed how I look at my collection as a whole. Since getting the Aqualion, my collection has actually shrunk quite a bit. I realized that having a watch I truly love to wear every day made me more comfortable with owning fewer watches overall, and it gave me the space to clear out a lot of pieces that weren't getting enough wear. But the funny thing is, it also made me appreciate my other watches even more. When you have a dependable, everyday watch, choosing to wear something different feels more intentional. There's something satisfying about making that choice, not out of necessity, but because you truly want to experience something different. I think probably the best analogy for how I view the Aqualion is a really great 24 to 70mm zoom lens, which I would be holding if we weren't shooting on it right now. If you're into photography, you know that a great 24 to 70 is one of the best all-purpose tools out there. It's not necessarily the absolute best for any one specific job, but it's incredibly versatile, good for wide shots, tight subjects, and just about everything in between. That's exactly how I see the Vertex. Sure, there are more specialized watches out there, dress watches that pair better with a tux, or ultra-rugged divers built for strapping to the outside of a submersible. But for most days, most outfits, and most situations, the Aqualion just works. For me, that's the mark of a truly great home base watch. So, for my money, is the Vertex M60 Aqualion ND worth considering? Absolutely. It's a watch that gets all the fundamentals right while still managing to stand apart. And it's one I find myself reaching for constantly. And for me, that says it all. But I'd love to hear what you think of the Vertex M60 Aqualion. What's your home base watch? Let us know in the comments. If you want to hear more of what I have to say about the Aqualion, you can go read my full review of the watch on Worn and Wound now. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more in-depth watch content. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on Worn and Wound.